This video is intended to describe a lightblade talisman named Abundance, which would be the 31st rendition of 2025. Joining me today be my whimsical stick figure chakra map, which I'll be utilizing quite a bit for this entire dissertation for various chakric stimulation reference points, as well as this lovely green leather, which of course will be notarized in due time. Without further ado, I'll be discussing the primary blade band scaffolding seen like so, going up this primary blade band, up to this lateral band, up to the side bands that are well concealed by many other crystals, to this lateral band, recirculating right here, to this apex band. Starting off with the transmutation ratio, consisting of hematite and smoky quartz in conjunction. This entire quadrant of this lateral section, going up right here, to the sides, to this lateral band, and recirculating is its own little blade band quadrant of the transmutation ratio. Hematite is a very fantastic iron-based mineral, makes for a very effective grounding of all excess stray radial energies through the root chakra into the earth stars and into earth meridian matrix for reprocessing. In tandem with smoky quartz fulfilling the same stimulation function, also works very diligently to effectively take all excess energy and ground it through the root into the earth stars, into the earth meridian matrix for reprocessing. So hence the name of the transmutation ratio is derived from the concept of being a high grounding transmutation agent to effectively ground the entire exotic range of this crystalline structure in some subroutine to encourage rapid discharging into the earth for etheric dialysis, as well as, of course, making the magic real by bringing this very exotic high-yield contact patch in a firm grounded point to actually encourage the rapid dispersal and grounding of this energy in the earth is a very, very big prerogative, like I said, to actually make the magic real by design. And this apex band right here, where the necklace will eventually be installed right at this point, is consisting of lapis lazuli, a very fantastic blue ray crystal of great antiquity notarization of the 5th and 6th chakra stimulation of wind elemental concentration, as well as it's quite the famous crystal that's been beloved by millions for thousands of years, much like turquoise for that capacity. So with that aspect right there, makes a very powerful sovereign highest truth spiritual activation that's quite famous for being a dharmic accelerant, as well as one's siddhis or psychic gifts being highly focused and brought to the awareness of the conscious self. In tandem with clear quartz right here to be a neutral accelerant of this particular sequence wavelength right here, going into another classic stone of great antiquity notarization and utilization, is turquoise. Turquoise is a quintessential 5th chakra stimulant that has great esteemed lore that's quite literally worldwide recognition, which I will omit to condense this video as much as possible. But the aspect why it's relevant here and quite prevalent in this sequence is, of course, to encourage the aspects of one's wholeness to the spectrums of earth, fire, water, and wind through a 5th chakra focus of wholeness, which would be the apex band in conjunction, like I said, of lapis and turquoise, be a nice 5th chakra stimulant apex right here to encourage one's highest sovereign truth. Then going back in the transmutation ratio, then discussing the abundance ratio. Hence the name of the talisman is based off this particular ignition sequence that's become quite prolific. Starting off with root-talated quartz right here, which is clear quartz with bands of golden rutile in it, which works as a massive supercharger accelerant of the entire energy closed-loop circuit. Root-talated quartz has bands of rutile in the structure that work as a massive accelerant. So clear quartz is a neutral ambient energizer of other frequencies. When you add rutile, it makes for a dramatic intensification of the entire ignition sequence, seen like so in the entire ignition right here, grounding back into the transmutation to once again, of course, encourage the high yield range to disperse and ground it even further. The criticality of discussing the transmutation sequence, particularly for a high yield variant light tech constructs or spirit tools such as this platform, is of the essence of criticality. So that'd be the root-talated quartz to intensify this entire wavelength, going into the classic and famous emerald, a true precious stone of high water concentration, heart chakra activation. That's quite literally a precious stone that most mortals have heard of for a distinct purpose of being a stone of antiquity and a precious, regal, utilized frequency of magic. So the aspect of emerald being the quintessential ideal heart chakra stimulant of the beryl family makes it a very powerful precious stone traditionally associated with abundance. Then right here is golden healer quartz, which is a very lovely frequency gold white light attunement to source resonant energies. Well, obviously saying that for metaphysical purposes or in the application of vibrational engineering is self-evidently very advantageous to have a nice clean attunement to the heart of the source of creation in an ignition sequence. So in that capacity, it also works to bring tremendous alignment of the source of etheric gold white light connection to the heart of creation, if you would, with a green ray terrestrial focus of heart chakra physicality being the highlighted focus. So it can be denoted to being somewhat of a holy grail generator in this capacity for this entire construct. Then going from golden healer quartz into peridot. Peridot, another classic famous stone of abundance, is a fantastic earth elemental 3rd and 4th chakra stimulant. And I denote it to the crystalline vibrational equivalent to chlorophyll, how of course all this happens of growth. So it's of course very intrinsic and advantageous to have a massive boost of earthy positivity of abundance, of particularly the 3rd and 4th chakras of extreme positive intake and growth. So that's why, of course, they've been prolifically utilized in the abundance ratio. Then going into another root-related quartz to intensify the energy into moss green agate. Moss green agate is the most stable green ray water elemental vibratory crystalline ally I could employ integrated in the blade band for the purpose of being the most stabilized stimulant of the terrestrial green ray heart chakra. So in that capacity, with this great exaggeration of the intensification of the emerald and the source energy in tandem with the peridot, with that great exaggeration comes the contingency integrated into, most importantly, stabilize the entire wavelength. So the abundance frequency of high yield nature has a way to, of course, be more stable in resonance so that the consistent vibration indeed encourages abundant manifestations, which is quite critical. Because the agates and jaspers, for that matter, in the mineral kingdom are the most stable varieties of vibrations based on their color spectrum and elemental correspondence. So to have that great exaggeration, like I mentioned, and to stabilize it is quite essential. And actually, I'm wearing out my little heart chakra thing for my dissertation. I have to probably redraft one of these ridiculous maps after this pretty soon. Anyhow, then going into the golden healer quartz, into the moss green agate into the golden healer quartz, igniting like so until it completes its sequence, grounded once again into the transmutation to ground the excess energy. So that would be the entirety of the blade band scaffolding mentioned thus far, which vaguely resembles a figure 8 by design to, of course, encourage recirculated perpetual momentum of the energy. So the entirety of the exotic diverse crystalline construct has a very efficient scaffolding to recirculate the energy for maximum continuity in that capacity. So next I'll be discussing the components of the blade face, starting right here all the way up to here. So right here, the very apex, if I can get this guy to sit straight for me, please, would be fulgurite. Fulgurite is actually petrified lightning, which means the lightning struck sand is carried the energy of lightning in a crystalline structure, which is actually a quite famous spirit tool of First Nation medicine wielders or practitioners of that day and age to intensify their prayers in resonance with lightning to be dramatically amplified of their intentions of prayers and service to the people. So in that capacity, it has been utilized as a very powerful prayer accelerant of very high yield nature shamanically for a long time. And so having that little frequency grounded in the structure, of course, brings lightning force capacity of intensification of the entire light body from bottom to top, as well as being a very powerful light body activator because it literally harnesses the power of lightning. But thank goodness, of course, there's many contingencies and buffers to get the most out of that while being very efficient to dramatically intensify the entire wavelength of the abundance platform. Then right here is a well utilized in my life's work master healer called Star Argonite. Star Argonite is a fantastic calcium-based full light body activator that works very diligently and very swiftly but gently to dismantle any patterns of dis-ease from top to bottom. Any stagnant flows that can be impeding a natural, fully functional light body based on Dharmic blueprint factory settings, or aka alignment with their Dharmic template, are highly addressed very quickly in all spectrums of the emotional, energetic, physical, and psychological bodies in that capacity. So it's truly a very dynamic purposeful, full light body clear of any stagnant energies that be impeding one's dharmic connection, which is very complementary to the goal of being in abundance, or essentially the Holy Grail made manifest. Then right here is a lovely piece of sunstone, which essentially serves as the yang to the yin of the green ray concentration. So you can think of the aspect of the green ray focus being a very powerful receptive abundance generator to make a very dramatic abundance wavelength signature, while the sunstone is an idyllic yang, masculine energy, positivity generator of the third and second chakras of very fun, sunny, good vibrations, which is very conducive to, of course, when you feel good, you feel alignment, you feel enthusiastic. With that vibrational pitch, the quantum field reacts to that kind of positive, beneficent, joyful, enthusiastic energy, which is very conducive to the abundance. To, of course, to feel good and project that out, then to have the highlighted reception of those aspects of abundance is the prerogative why this is so intrinsic in all abundance constructs, to be, once again, the yang to the yin. To be quite the positive blessing of enthusiasm with the intensive hive reception of the abundance ratio. Then to support that exact aspect is a rather more exotic variant of the yang of this construct of Libyan gold tektite, which is an amazing gold ray crystal utilized by the pharaohs of antiquity to be carved into scarab beetles to be set in their finery blessed plates, which of course were indicative and badge of the office of the Magi god kings of antiquity. So that aspect of Libyan gold tektite is a very, very potent, powerful gold ray crystal, virtually unsurpassed mineral kingdom, hence it's one of my top 5 favorite crystals, if I dare say so, to be a tremendously illuminating solar plexus and sacrum stimulant, much like sunstone, yet it has a golden ray of illumination that actually stimulates the entire auric field with high yield gold ray emanation, which is a very powerful manifestation agent of very high degree of the antiquity utilization of the regality of ancient Egypt would utilize this to intensify their status as god king magi. So that's pretty cool, obviously, and it makes for a very fantastic gold ray cousin, complementary to moldavite. So before I discuss moldavite, the aspect of Libyan gold tektite, it's a quintessential dharmic accelerant to put one's intention in alignment with their divine path made manifest. Hence, is part of the abundance ratio as a very important staple for all varieties of this construct thus far. Then above that is moldavite. Moldavite is quite the famous or infamous crystal in this day and age for being a very powerful stone of magic that most mortals have heard of at this point, based on social media platforms such as TikTok and the like, where certain people say how this crystal has ruined their life, because indeed this crystal holds no prisoners of massive hurricane force dharmic acceleration, which is very, very taxing on the false self matrix that divides one from their divine blueprint. So of course, the big idea of even a small dose right here in such a well-contained, recirculated device is to mitigate the timeline whiplash that associates rapid growth of one's divine platform. AKA, when you make an omelet, you have to crack a few eggs. So obviously, to mitigate the timeline whiplash of dramatic dharmic accelerations has many contingencies, such as the green ray concentration, the transmutation to take the excess energy and disperse it very efficiently. There's a lot of aspects in this engineering that have basically been made as contingencies to get the most out of this dramatic cosmic force alignment that I utilize with great reverence and respect, and also, of course, with many contingencies in the design to get the most out of that rapid holy grail transference of one's true self, manifesting very quickly internally and externally simultaneously. Then down here on this side of the blade face would be a lovely big bolt of red ruby. Ruby, another famous stone of antiquity that's been well utilized and of course well praised for millennia, is a corundum-based, very hard crystal which has oftentimes an 8.5 or 9 out of 10 the hardness scale, which means the dense atomical structure of the red ray seen right here has an unsurpassed vibratory stimulation of the root chakra in the mineral kingdom, of the intensive, enlightened root-based chakra, which is very indicative of abundance as well to make it real. To be a tremendous fortification of the red ray in a very obvious, large, powerful platform right there, of course, is to bring a tremendous high activation threshold of the root chakra, which is in governance of our tremendous enthusiasm of abundance, which of course is very inherent in the goal here, is to make a construct that encourages the highest capacity one's dharmic inheritance, or quantum inheritance, if you would, of the abundance spectrum. So to fully feel that unencumbered flow, because this is also a very powerful accelerant in its own right of being the most powerful red ray crystal in the mineral kingdom, based also on of course, the mineral composition, as well as the great amount of faith and magic humankind, the amorphic field, have associated with this red ray crystal of antiquity as a true precious stone. So that has a lot of very, very powerful energy associated behind ruby to be the quintessential zest for life frequency. And then to be a perfect counterbalance to that, almost perfect I'd say, would be a very lovely purple ray, violet ray crystal named chaurite. Chaurite is a fantastic violet ray crown stimulant as well as third eye stimulant, and of course soul star, stellar gateway, higher chakra stimulant. But yet the aspect of chaurite has special inclusions called dendric, which actually makes for a very powerful self-contained grounding apparatus. So obviously this is a wind elemental frequency, yet the black ray concentration of chaurite makes for a very dynamic, effective Earth star stimulant to bring the violet flame or the violet ray of high frequency divine transmutation into the body, into the earth, as to another tremendous dharmic accelerant of one's truest path made very obvious in that capacity. Which is very nice to have in sequence with the ruby right here with the quintessential root chakra stimulation. Then you have, of course, you have covered right here the antithesis of the violet ray crown stimulation in one tandem sequence before it completes its entire output. And I'll discuss the selenites and the kyanites for last as a comprehensive capstone. So next I'll be moving on to the section where this lovely green leather hood will be installed for much more than an aesthetic purpose. Indeed, it of course is very functional. So obviously being a green leather scene right here, it's a lovely color therapy resonance encouragement to once again a heart chakra green ray concentration to be very encouraging to the frequency color therapy resonance. As well as, it's quite essential for actually insulating this energy of this rather diverse section that will be considered under the hood, where all these different loose crystals are seen, to actually insulate the current so that the energy is more contained and more efficient as it runs through this entire section, through the prior blade band and the apex band. So you can think of that also as mitigating loose, stray energies, so the entire design is more efficient in its intended design purpose. As well as a way to, of course, protect all these crystals seen right here, stacked like so and terminated into the primary wire. So indeed, it works, of course, to protect these crystals from having any loose components running away, kind of like losing organs of an entity, if you would. So that's why it's there, of course, for much more than aesthetic. But of course, last but maybe least, it does bring, once it's fully, of course, cut to aesthetical purposes, it makes for a very nice completion of the construct, as it's living happily ever after with the recipient being worn as a talisman. And so this section, God willing, will never be seen again, because that means the hood performed its function and stayed intact. So once I describe these, this, God willing, will be the last time they'll ever see the light of day. So this section of the hood between the two lateral bands starts off with Larimar, a very fantastic 5th chakra stimulant of great soothing capacity to bring a very powerful fire and water capacity to the 5th and 6th chakras, which basically generates an oasis of calm that's very conducive to the mental mind's state of abundance, to bring a very soothing, powerful, calming momentum to this entire device, which is very high yield and rather powerful. Then right here is shungite, another crystal quite in vogue in this day and age for being a black ray crystal of quite famous now for being notarized to mitigate EMF, non-conducive, harmful wavelengths, or 5G for that matter, that we contend with as modern humans, to be a fantastic carbon black ray mitigator of any kind of negative frequencies to be, of course, dispersed, transmuted, and filtered into the earth for etheric dialysis. So in that capacity, it also works as a great little dose to bring a strong, high-frequency, subtle DNA protector and transmuter through the entire auric field in its own right. Then right here is Tibetan black quartz, which is actually utilized in a trinity of crystals I utilize pretty religiously for their effective healing dynamic range, which I'll describe once I get to the second part of the trinity with the star argonite, the Tibetan black quartz. I might as well describe all three at the same time because, of course, they do basically the same energetic stimulation pathway, except working together, they generate significant vibrational compound interest. So black Tibetan black Tibetan quartz right here, in tandem with star argonite, then in tandem with seraphinite seen right here. All three of these crystals have a very fantastic full stimulation range of the light body's capacities from the ground all the way to the top, working very diligently, especially together, to dismantle any patterns of dis-ease through the entire system from top to bottom. So the three of them together work very fantastically synergistically for a very pragmatically effective, good vibrational cleansing for the entire auric field, to put it simply. So in that capacity, Tibetan black quartz, of course, coming from Tibet, right here, is from a region of the earth that has perhaps one of the most unbroken disciplines of spiritual practice in the earth of Om frequency resonance alignment. So that makes for a very powerful Om attunement to the source of creation as well, and makes for a very nice rapid expansion of the Earth stars in tandem with the Soul Star to make a very dynamic full light body activation, as well as, and kind of works like psychic window wash, basically clears the field very effectively. Then while I'm still in the same vein of concept, I'll discuss the seraphinite, like mentioned, with its two siblings I utilize of the saragonite, the black, and the Tibetan black quartz. Seraphinite is a green ray crystal named after the seraphim archangels. That's a very fantastic full light body activator as well, and works very diligently to align the I am calm and raise Kundalini to one's ideal factory blueprint settings and dismantle any patterns of the diseases that are stored in the auric field and the DNA structure, yada yada, etc., etc. But the big point is that those three together have been quite the prolific utilized clearing frequency. Next right here, I'll be discussing the ruby and zoisite. So much like ruby right here, has bolts of ruby inside the green zoisite structure as a natural synergization. And the aspect of zoisite is one of the most powerful heart-mind coherence generators in the mineral kingdom to encourage that ideal pathway of one's conscious self in connection to their heart's knowing, connection to the creation of all that is. So with that intensive heart-mind coherence, of course, is very indicative of one's dharmic quantum inheritance, abundance, of course, very complementary. But the aspect of the ruby in here also, with like here, brings that lovely trifecta of heart-mind coherence and the gusto, the zest, the enthusiasm in the frequency with its own little dynamic crystalline output. Very fantastic. A lot to talk about, so I'll be clearing my throat a lot. Right here is a lovely piece of prehnite. Prehnite is a fantastic third and fourth chakra water and earth frequency stimulant that is a very powerful master healer in its own right that brings great soothing of all excess energy through the field as well. And in my humble opinion, it's one of the cleanest attunement frequencies to Raphael the Archangel, or the Raphael force close to source, as a very powerful master healing frequency emanation in its own right. Then right here is black tektite. Black tektite is a very fantastic product of nickel iron meteorite impacting sand, carrying the extraterrestrial jolt into 3D creation. So it could be definitely considered a stone of heaven and earth from its production, and its vibration is quite powerful, but luckily it's a black ray crystal which raises vibrations from a foundational setting to intensify the entire high frequency pitch from the bottom up. So it raises vibrations from a very ground up standard right there. So of course that's become quite the, like I said, a standard frequency utilized in virtually all light tech, no matter what disposition of construct is intended to be quite simply a vibrational threshold increaser that of course is working from the ground up. Then, right here is quite the dynamic, very powerful frequency of zincite in Blu-ray format, luckily. Zincite is a product of zinc being smelted in a certain way, which is a cardinal fire energy crystal that has perhaps the most unsurpassed, nearly explosive activation of the lower three chakras in the mineral kingdom, to be a tremendous force of momentum of one's dharmic appointed path. It's a tremendous dharmic accelerant. And so obviously a little dose of this goes a long way to close up reactive circuit to be a very dynamic blasting off of any patterns that be impeding one's lower three chakras, of course, and work to bring a very vivid, dynamic, explosive activation of one's lower three scaffolding that raises vibrations very effectively, particularly in concerns to applying this abundance to the tangibility of the third dimensional plane. So that's a very powerful, enthusiastic activation crystal, very high yield nature that I, just like Moldavite, I utilize with great reverence and with great contingency in mind to get the most out of it while maintaining harmonic balance. Then right here is actually healer's gold, which is a combination of iron pyrite and magnetite, which makes a very fantastic iron-based rapid grounder that works to encourage rapid grounding of the entire vibratory output into the cellular structure to bring further tangibility to this aspect, as well as a way to regulate the energy so that the excess frequency pitch is always getting a strong regulation into the system, make it more like a magnetic iron-based ground point. Very complementary with the high iron concentration of the transmutation ratio of hematite to be another encouraging to, of course, ground it into reality to make the magic real. So like I said, that would be the entire hood section that, God willing, will never see the light of day again, because that means this guy has indeed performed his function and maintained its installation. So, at the very apex of this wooden core right here, and also the wooden core is actually oak, right here from my buddy back here in the back of my yard between these two trees, is a nice little oak tree that I go visit quite regularly for these devices that drops on the ground for me. So oak is a very fantastic carbon-based range of strength. Since the dense atomical grain of oak is very strong, it has its own great amount of legendary lore associated with it, it made it very appropriate to have a very strengthened foundation for such a high yield variant of the abundance construct, particularly in talisman format. So that'd be the wood. Then right here, at the very apex of the wood right here, where the necklace will be installed after this video is fully notarized, is tourmalated quartz. Technically, it's tourmalated quartzite, which is actually looks like it has a slight calcium matrix, which makes for a very nice full neutral clearing of the energy field. But the aspects of black tourmaline seen inside the structure right there works as its own natural massive amplification of black tourmaline, which is another black-gray crystal quite in vogue in this timeline for notarization to mitigate negativity by successfully transmuting the energy into the earth for reprocessing. So in that capacity, with natural amplification at the very apex of a sphere naturally, of course, which works as a nice 360 radiation, makes for a very powerful etheric vacuum cleaner, if you would, to make sure that the lower density frequencies are highly amplified for the rainbow spectrum to, once again, transmute in the earth to make the magic real. And that was a mouthful. Clear my throat on cue. So that would be virtually all the crystals mentioned before I mentioned this last section, which I saved for last for intentional purposes to be a comprehensive capstone. So in this whole 27.5-minute crystalline discussion rant to myself with my phone for this video, all these crystals mentioned thus far, running in this closed-loop circuit, they of course run past this guy right here on both sides, adhered to the core of selenite. So selenite is a very fantastic master healer in its own right, of great notarization of utilized for metaphysical crystalline applications. Selenite is a very fantastic 6th, 7th, 8th, all the non-physical chakra stimulates back to one's Godhead. So it works very effectively as a two-way consciousness bridge to one's higher self and their conscious self. And with that high frequency induction, also works a very high yield transmutation of burning off stagnant energies through the entire auric field from top to bottom. In that capacity, with that kind of divine alignment that works to burn off stagnant lower vibratory patterns. So that's fantastic, but where it truly shines in this entire construct is running a closed-loop circuit. It can take this entire frequency pitch of crystals ignition sequence. It can also purify all of these crystals in a closed-loop circuit. It can amplify or intensify all of these crystals in a closed-loop circuit, but perhaps most importantly, bring equilibrium and harmonization to the entire frequency pitch. So with this entire discussion, saying this aspect is quite critical, is the entire frequency pitch is to, of course, be purified, amplified, and harmonized in that sequence with the selenite for a truly dynamic, efficient spiritual in that capacity. Then next to the selenites are actually the 4 spectrums of kyanite I have access to. And so before I discuss the kyanites, they are the most rapid transfers of energy in the mineral kingdom, hence they play a very critical role to making the magic real. So black kyanite is the quintessential rapid grounder. So before I discuss this guy, of course, I'll be moving my pen very whimsically fast to do my best to illustrate how rapid these guys actually transfer and their own dynamic functionality. Black kyanite is the absolute... Get the focus correctly? The camera's been blurring out quite a bit today in this dissertation. Black kyanite is the most rapid grounder of the energy through the Earth's stars as quick as absolute possible. That takes the entire frequency which of this device and rapidly disperses and discharges it into the Earth absolutely quick as possible, which also, for that matter, kyanites can serve as another layer of etheric Teflon that is highly discouraging to any aspects of non-source aligned divine blueprint self to be rapidly regulated, dispersed, and transferred and buffered at such a high yield ratio that negativities of old timelines or situations we have a very discouraged time maintaining in the field under this high frequency induction of rapid transference, as a quick little preface. Back on topic. Black kyanite is the most rapid transfer of energy into the Earth as absolutely quick as possible, which works also like a surge protector to ensure the contact patches making into the Earth as absolutely quick as possible. It's a big prerogative. Then orange kyanite is the most rapid transfer of the sacrum chakra to the absolute highest capacity of one's divine creativity, for example, inspiration, influence, as well as manifestation. Then green kyanite right here is the absolute most rapid transfer of the heart chakra's capacities for input, output simultaneously, very, very rapidly, very quickly to bridge any patterns of any kind of stagnancies that would be impeding the natural healthy flow. In tandem with blue kyanite right here, which is a very fantastic third eye instrument, it works very diligently, very quickly to, of course, entrain the hemispheres of the left and right brains for whole brain thinking, aka awakened third eye, with less cross interference. As well as, of course, with that capacity comes with the cities, psychic gifts, things of that nature, one's quantum inheritance of divine alignment. So with the four of these combined, it makes for the most rapid transfers of energy of one's idyllic pattern as quick as absolute possible to make overlaps, as well as another layer of protection for the entire auric field's integrity to make sure that all the excess energy is being rerouted in real time, which makes them very reactive to calibrate in real time at all times to maintain perfected equilibrium and harmony in that capacity. So that was quite the mouthful right there to discuss, but basically now at 32 minutes, this is the entire crystalline composition well notarized. So obviously, as a summary, it's designed to, of course, be worn as a talisman so that it can be passively engaged on the person doing its thing, like so, being worn. And of course, it is the abundant spectrum of the 31st degree so far that's performed very admirably in this timeline. And as can be seen, it's very diverse in stimulation points that hit the entire chakra calm octave range in a very perpetual intensive balance. But the biggest heavy concentration, obviously, is the tremendous heart chakra activation that would be very indicative of alignment with one's quantum abundance of who they are in truth in connection to Creator and the Force. Well, that would be it. That would be the 31st rendition of Abundance. 1,000 blessings, and may the Force be with us all.